I am humbled and honored by this award. But I want to really let you know that while I am being recognized as an individual, I learned a long time ago that life is a team sport. And especially when we start talking about energy, the environment, our quality of life in this country, our security, it is a team sport. And I am absolutely in awe the more I learn about Colorado and the Alliance for Sustainable Colorado and what this team is. That is effectively what an alliance is. The Military Advisory Board represents all of the military services and the Coast Guard. So we came together about 5 years ago, put out a report called Climate Change and the Threat to National Security. This was groundbreaking because why were a bunch of old admirals and generals talking about climate change? Wasn't that supposed to be tree hugger country? Wasn't that supposed to be environmentalists fighting big business over who was giving a better quality of life or who was destroying the world for future generations? Enter this new voice, and the title of the report says it all. Climate Change and the Threat to National Security. It was a threat because the increased global warming and weather events caused by climate change will increase the severity and the intensity and the frequency of severe weather, whether it's long-term droughts like we're experiencing here in the United States, or it's monsoons that are out of control over on the other side of the world, destroying crops, washing away fertile ground, creating massive humanitarian assistance, disaster relief problems. It acts as a threat multiplier for instability, in which fragile governments and fragile societies will become failed, creating a power vacuum, a structural vacuum, into which will flow all manner of bad characters. Organized crime, paramilitaries, terrorists, just as we've seen in many of the failing or failed states around the world today. Just imagine that happening much, much more in the future. Yet, in the face of all of this, really, really great science, not just international science, but science right here in the United States, there are a lot of people that just don't get it. And the problem is, I think we are afraid in some ways of believing in climate change because we think it's going to be bad for our economy, or it's going to be bad for our quality of life or standard of living, that we're going to have to give something up. And nothing could be further from the truth, as this group of wonderful people here tonight knows. It is actually a way to get better, to create from challenges of energy security, economic security, and environmental security, great opportunities to improve our quality of life and to be a true leader around the world in improving quality of life in developing countries. So the other report that we did in the 2009 timeframe, May of 2009, was Powering America's Defense, Energy and the Threat to National Security, or the Risks to National Security. Unambiguous conclusion in that, which is partly in your programs, that America's energy posture constitutes a serious and urgent threat to our national security, economically, diplomatically, and militarily. And further, that those who would wish to do this country harm can exploit that vulnerability, which is primarily an overabundance on fossil fuel and a belief in many, many parts of our society and many parts of our economy that that dependency can go on forever. Business as usual is acceptable. So what can we do about this? Certainly, we can't believe any longer that business as usual is a viable course of action for this great country. What we can do is to come together in alliances like this one. We can come together in every town and village across the country, and we can recognize that, yes, these are challenges, but we can do so much more about them and create opportunities for jobs, opportunities for improving local and regional and global environmental quality. 220 million American citizens are living in states that have some form of a renewable portfolio standard or renewable energy standard. And that is really just the beginning. And this beginning of turning challenge into opportunity is being led by the military services and the wonderful men and women in uniform that are serving all around the world. From here in Fort Carson, doing things like creating a net zero installation where you have zero water waste, zero electricity waste, zero waste streams. And they are prototyping things like microgrids and multiple sources of renewable coupled with traditional forms of energy, electricity that's powered by fossil fuel in some cases, but leading the way technologically and importantly culturally. For those who would say, we don't have a problem, drill baby drill, I would say, what is it that those wonderful young men and women in uniform and the wonderful veterans that we have that know about our future that we should really listen to and emulate? Because as the United States military advances in their bottom line of greater operational efficiency, greater combat effectiveness, we all can follow that lead. We can see some of the technological benefits that inevitably spin out of the Department of Defense, but they're doing it because it makes them more effective in protecting this great country. And they increasingly are using biofuels like the Great Green Fleet did out in the Pacific Rim operation just this past summer. They are doing it with Air Force tankers loaded up with 50-50 blends of traditional jet fuel and bio-based fuels. They are doing it by drop-in fuels in every vehicle that the Army operates, whether they're combat vehicles or whether they're combat support vehicles. The United States military gets it. And just like we benefit today from GPS or the internet, or in some cases other wonderful quality of life enhancers and economic drivers from investments that the military has made many, many decades ago, so too can we benefit from their wonderful leadership in energy efficiency and renewable energy. That this country is, in fact, going to be more secure, more healthy, and more prosperous with more clean, renewable energy and greater energy efficiency. And if there are folks that think that it's never going to happen, say, hey, look, it's not going to happen necessarily in Washington. It's not going to happen on Wall Street. It's not going to happen in Detroit. They'll have their ability to contribute to it, but it's going to happen right here in Colorado and other states that are getting it, that are seeing this is good for business. We have real jobs here. We are using an increased percentage of our energy that powers our economy and powers our quality of life by renewable energy, whether it's sun or biofuel or wind or hydro. We have wonderful, wonderful assets, and Colorado and the Alliance can be such a leader and is such a leader in showing our nation how we can move forward. What is a conservative, after all, but one who conserves? One who is committed to protecting and holding close the things by which we live, our countryside, our rivers and mountains, our plains and meadows and forests. This is our patrimony. This is what we leave to our children, and our great moral responsibility is to leave it to them either as we found it or better than we found it. Ronald Reagan, June 1984.